good morning, everyone. My name is Sonia Romano from the Water Post EU, and I'm here today joined by Ludovic Basset, Director General of EASA, after 20 years of professional experience in Brussels. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia.
As digital advertising is evolving fast through new technologies, new rules, and customer expectations, brands and creators are forced to rethink how to build trust and how to be held accountable. And also, Europe is trying to find a balance between innovation, protection, and responsibility. With the upcoming Digital Fairness Act, Europe is trying to set clear rules, but self regulation has been central until this very moment in advertising. Where does self regulation add a real value according to you?
It's really interesting. I mean, in the space of advertising and marketing, it's very interesting because self-regulation is not new. In some countries, it has decades and decades and decades of history. At European level, within the EASA network, it was built 30 years ago. And the idea is that it, it does exactly what you said. It strikes a very good balance between full creativity on the one hand and over-regulation on the other. The idea is to not only build and create good advertising, but responsible advertising. And this thing, I think this is the key of what we're doing. We're not replacing the law. The law is still a very strong basis for whatever everything we do. We just complement the law in a more agile, maybe practice, more direct and more versatile way, polyvalent. And that's what is key in this era where everything goes fast at scale with the digital age. Yeah, clearly.
Since you mentioned the law, what really matters though is how behavior changes in practice. That brings us straight to the world of influencer marketing. Creators and brands are under increasing pressure to disclose their partnerships. Beyond laws, how do you see transparency shaping the way audiences perceive trust and trust influencers?
While you use the term trust 3 times in your sentence, it shows that this is the key of everything, especially in digital. Trust, commonly in our sphere, is the currency of the digital world. If you don't have trust, you cannot do anything. And content creator, I think they are very much attached to trust. They are building communities, and they really want to be transparent and to nurture this trust. When it comes from influencer to influencer marketing, which is the technique also used to advertise products, trust is key. Not because you want to certainly lie to your potential customers, but you really want to be fully transparent. Transparency is not the only thing that is important in advertising, but it's the entry point. If you are not transparent, you cannot create trust. What we've seen in EASA and at national level is that obviously 20 years ago, there were no influencers. And even a few years ago, the influencers that were there were actually trying to create businesses without perhaps knowing their responsibility, let alone the law. As I said before, self-regulation and standards and codes go beyond the law, but the law is the basis, but we go beyond with ethics, responsibility. And what we have seen is that under the pressure of consumers, but also under the pressure of lawmakers, but also under the pressure of their peers and themselves, content creators and influencers have started to professionalize themselves. They have created associative structures. They are being represented at national level. There are now, I think, more than 12 national associations of influencers in Europe, gathered into a European organization, a member of EASA. And I think this professionalization is very important because most of the time, when we see problems, is not just because they don't want to do the work and not being transparent, is that they just don't know. And this is where we come into action, where self-regulation comes into play. We give them the opportunity to train themselves and to better understand how responsible they must be if they want to continue in this business.
And with the technology moving so fast with AI, which is generating a lot of ads and content, the balance between protection and empowerment is becoming harder to sustain at this point. And when things go wrong, responsibility becomes a little bit less clear. Who should be responsible, and how can European frameworks adapt without blocking creativity and innovation?
Yeah, again, the key is how you strike the balance between encasing everything and forbidding everything, and then on the other hand, having everything, having total freedom in creativity. Actually, the law already exists. The principle behind consumer protection exists in advertising and marketing. You cannot lie to a consumer to sell a product or a service. So, in fact, talking about responsibility, well, I dare say everybody is responsible, including, by the way, the consumer. Uh, but yeah, I mean, the entire ecosystem, all the chain of the ecosystem, if you're involved with using a tool, because is a tool, you must always ask yourself, what is the impact on the consumer? And what we're doing within EASA is, of course, trying to set up standards in order to make sure that, again, professionals of the advertising and marketing community have the necessary expertise in order to not deceive consumers. Um, we have the Act in Europe. The European Commission is working on code of conduct, on guidelines. So we are working with other stakeholders to give our input on this. Um, I think everybody is seeing AI today as a major challenge in the EU bubble. To some extent, it is, but it is also a great opportunity. So we just need to relax a bit and to see how best to serve the consumer and the citizen alike.
About deceiving consumers, as you were saying, technology is also trying to reshape what brand says, especially on sustainability. Consumers are demanding more transparency on environmental impact. And however, greenwashing remains a persistent risk. It's important to trust that a brand sustainability claims are real. What makes a brand green's message authentic?
First of all, a bit of data for you. If we look at the complaints that we receive throughout our network, we see that on misleading advertising, we have different categories, but when you look at misleading advertising, 22% of complaints on misleading advertising are about greenwashing. So this is quite important. Um, of course, complaints doesn't mean that the consumer is always right, and then we need to assess the complaints. Again, here the law already exists. We have empowering the consumer, the empowerment of consumers. We have all the laws that already apply when in terms of just misleading consumers. And it's clear that the justification of any green claim is a must have. However, what we see also sometimes is, or we hear about, is green hashing. So basically, brand that having great green product or green services, moving away from any green claims because sometimes the law is a bit too strong in their view, or the risk is too strong. Again, it's how do you strike the balance? A good advice would be, and this is what we try to do through our best practice guidelines and all the guidance and all the codes that are in operation in Europe at national level, is to make sure that anything that you say, including when it's a green claim, needs to be justified, substantiated, and not by throwing 200 pages of scientific research at the consumer, but so that an average consumer can clearly, if he wants to find the truth behind the short advertising on any media, by the way, he can do so very in an easy manner. But substantiation is key, indeed. By the way, the Green Claims Directive discussion that is a bit on hold now, uh, it's very interesting because it takes pretty much everything that advertising self-regulation has done for the past 25 years in terms of green claim substantiation. So interesting.
Over all this era, there's also a broader theme that it's that brands and creators are being asked to take responsibility beyond reach or engagement metrics. Do you feel that platforms, brands, and influencers are ready to take on this responsibility towards the consumers?
Not only I think, I know. Um, 5 years ago, platform already existed. No platform were members of EASA. We have now Google, Meta, and TikTok as part of the membership. And it's not just ticking a box for them. I can tell you that on a daily basis, the work that they do within their brand safety department, most of the time, to educate internally and to educate also content creators that they're working with on the issue of responsible advertising is huge. I mean, honestly. So you're right. We always talk about the advertising ecosystem as a big bubble where everybody is responsible and needs to be responsible, including the platform. So again, when it comes to advertising and marketing for the sphere that we're interested in at EASA, I can say, yeah, that yes, clearly they're putting the efforts into having a better digital world, clearly.
At this point, the question is actually how to stay ahead rather than trying to constantly catching up in a world where rules, tech, and expectation are always accelerating and constantly accelerating, I would say. So, how can platforms and creators navigate these challenges without just reacting?
Well, it's linked to what I was just saying a minute ago. The idea is to be deeply committed and involved from the get go. So, for example, to give you just one example, we have designed at EASA a European program called At Ethics, which is a training and certification program which is spread throughout Europe with the support of the platform, with the support of the brands, with the support of everybody of the ecosystem, of course. But the idea here is to give influencer content creators the necessary tools to train themselves to understand what they can and cannot do,
Hmm.
certify them if needs be, and this is done also with the strong support of the platforms, but also policymakers, by the way. When you look at European level, this Adetics program was endorsed by Commissioner McGrath, so we are very happy about it. We work very well with uh, with the various director general within the European Commission, but also at local level, all the self-regulatory organizations which are in charge of basically putting in practice self-regulation, advertising self-regulation at national level, all of them throughout Europe, 28 of them are working with local and national policymakers hand in hand. It goes even sometimes beyond just collaboration.
Mhm.
I take example in Spain or in other countries, but where the local ecosystem moved from advertising self-regulation to co-regulation, which is basically a partnership, almost a delegation of the states to a self-regulatory organization to being empowered to make sure that there's no problem in the advertising segment. So this collaboration exists at local, national, European, actually even at an international level. But it's key indeed.
What's key as well is the importance of dialogue, right?
Always. And you see, I would even go further than this dialogue, but at every single level. This is what we do. EASA, so the European Advertising Standard Alliance, is not an association. It is an alliance. It is a platform where people can talk. Publishers, broadcasters, platforms, self-regulatory organization, everybody. And that we nurture this dialogue. And we had even more partners, and we had the policymakers. And that's the key. We sit, I always say that we don't represent the advertising sector. We sit kind of above, and not because we're better, but simply because we sit in this space called the advertising self-regulation, where everybody is welcome,
Mhm.
including consumer organizations with which we work quite well. Um, because dialogue, at the end of the day, is what makes the difference, not law, not sheer bans or overregulation, clearly.
Indeed, but sometimes dialogue is can be lacking.
Well,
You were just joining one of our roundtable that we were able to be experts and brands and institutions. But my question is, what are the biggest gaps in listening, and how can this conversation actually move from just a debate to action?
from my point of view, and when it comes to advertising self-regulation, the challenge, our challenge, my challenge, is to better explain what is behind this word of self-regulation, which is often not really understood. It is understood as the industry does what it wants, where it's not that. It's collective effort where the industry also commits to abide by rules that are monitored by independent third parties. And so beyond the dialogue, the explanation also of the virtue and the values of self-regulation is important. But that goes beyond just what we do. I think in Brussels, in the bubble, we're used to do that. And it's been 20 years I'm here, and countless of time I've been speaking and trying to explain. I think to some extent, at some point, people just defend what they are defending and defending the interests of their members. But but I dare say that there is a strong exchange, and at the end of the day, that is what democracy is all about, is that we discuss and we come to a conclusion that does not go to the extreme, but
Mm.
somehow is valid for everybody and future proof.
Thank you for sharing your perspective and for being with us here today.
Thank you for having invited me. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for following us from home. See you at the next episode of The View from Brussels.